Mark Feinsand is with us on this installment of Hot Stove. And Mark, big day for the Texas Rangers coming up. In fact, at 11 a.m. Eastern, we'll have live coverage of the press conference, which introduces former All-Star right-hander Chris Young as new Texas Rangers general manager.
Yeah, for starters, I'm just glad I wasn't on that list because I think at the winter meetings, I'm always a candidate with my phone as well. Chris Young, really strong hire by the Rangers. He was a guy the Mets were looking at very seriously for their GM job. He was only pitching 3 years ago, and it's sort of amazing to see where his career has gone since he hung up his spikes. He went to work for MLB under Joe Torre and, eventually replaced Joe as sort of the head of on-field operations, dealing with discipline and dealing with umpiring and everything that comes in that area. And here he is at 41 years old, Princeton graduate, obviously a very bright guy who is really well respected. And one area that he has that most people in these jobs don't have
all-star pitcher.
is that he played, Harold. You're right. And, right now you look around the league, most guys who are running front offices were not players. I think Jerry Dipoto is the only former player in a GM job right now until Chris Young
Fake
takes
news.
this spot. He was in the, when he was in the Players Association, he was a big negotiator, big time involved with the union, reverse with MLB. So he's seen all sides of the game, and I think this is a great hire for the Rangers.
Mark, just keep blasting through. Matt is so happy to be back in the studio with the soundboard. Just keep blasting through, okay? That's all I got to say.
Wait, that was the soundboard?
I know, it's hard to tell a lot of times, isn't it? Right, yeah.
Hey, so Chris Young, there's been some pushback, though, with the hire, with the fact that he just hasn't been a GM and he hasn't been in the front office, for 3 years. Just 3 years ago, he was playing. So there's a lot of people out there upset that they put in all these years and not getting that same shot. I'm curious your thoughts on that.
Well, he's been in an executive role with MLB, and if you look at MLB's commissioner's office, they have produced a lot of front office talent around the league. A lot of people who are now running clubs or in decision-making roles around the game started at MLB, right? We just saw Kim Ng hired out of the commissioner's office. She obviously didn't start there, but she spent a very long time there. David Stern's got his start there. Jeff Bridich got his start there. There were a bunch of executives who have told me that working at the commissioner's office is sort of like graduate school for baseball front office work. And, I'm sure there are people who are upset by this, but remember, he's also not going into the top decision-making role at the club. John Daniels is still the president of baseball operations. Chris will be working with John, learning from him on this side of the game. Anybody who knows Chris Young and has had a conversation with him about baseball knows he's very qualified. And, I'm sure there are people who have been grinding their way up who are upset that somebody got this opportunity after, 3 years after retiring as a player. But I don't think he's going to prove to be anything but a great hire for Texas.
I played with him up in Alaska one summer.
Did you?
Oh, wow. Yeah. Thank you, soundboard. Hey, the one thing about Chris Young, I will say this. Major League Baseball Commissioner's Office is really going to miss this guy. He was having a major impact on the game. He will do the same with the Rangers. I think he's going to be great there. I'm floored that him and Jerry Dipoto are the only two GMs that played baseball.
Well, remember, we're not too far removed from a time when no GMs had been active players, right? It never used to be.
But back in the day, all the GMs were former players, it seems like.
I guess the pendulum has swung a little bit in both directions. You're right, but those of us that know Chris Young well know that they got the right guy for whatever job in baseball that was being offered.
Yeah, he's gonna be great.
So let's move right on to the next piece of business for the Rangers, and maybe this will be among the things that Chris Young is asked when he meets the media later on this morning. They've got some business to get to. They've got a very tradable asset in Lance Lynn. Is that going to be the first thing on his agenda, finding a buyer, finding an offer for their biggest asset?
I don't know if it's the first thing, but it's certainly one of them. It's certainly a prominent issue for the Rangers this winter. They have an asset that a lot of other teams covet. And with the way the starting pitching market is, and we've talked about this, for the first month of free agency, after Trevor Bauer, it drops off, right? You've got the guys like Jake Odorizzi, Tanaka, Taijuan Walker, but there aren't many of those number 2, number 3 type pitchers out there. And so the ones that are going to command a lot of money. Lance Lynn has 1 year at a very reasonable rate on his contract remaining, and he is a very desirable guy. I've spoken to some executives. I said, how do you view Lance Lynn? They said he's an innings eater. He's a guy you could feel very comfortable slotting in to a game 2 assignment in a postseason series. So is he an ace? No, he's not going to command an ace-like return for 1 year of his services. But to sign that guy to a 1-year deal for about $10 million, there aren't very many teams that wouldn't like to add Lance Lynn.
Well, and the way the game has changed, Mark, really, do we need an ace? Is he going to go 9 innings? No, nobody's really doing that anyway. So he's going to be really nice for somebody to fit. I think it'd be interesting, though. It'll tell us a lot about the Rangers, and I'm curious your thought on this, of how far away they think they are from really being competitive, because Chris Young, if anybody understands pitching and what those horses can do for you, he's the guy. So if he trades Lance Lynn, that, in my mind, that pushes the Rangers further back from being where they want to get to. If they keep him, they might be thinking, oh, we're not that far off. Your thoughts?
Well, remember, he's only got 1 year left on his contract. He's a free agent a year from now. So unless they think they can contend in 2021 with Lance Lynn, there's really no upside to keeping him. We've seen guys get traded away from teams and sign back with their old teams. We saw that happen with Aroldis Chapman and the Yankees. The Rangers can trade Lance Lynn, and if they feel in a year that they're going to be competitive in 2022, 2023, they can go try to get him back on the free agent market. But unless they plan on contending in 2021, which I think is a tall order right now, there's no reason not to trade him, bring back a young piece or two to try to build for that future.